Hi there again, and we're almost done talking about Mulan, the true story. Now in this video, I want to talk about the historicity of the original Ballad of Mulan and how it matches our modern academic scientific view on the history of the Northern Wei and their war with Roran Khanate. For example, let's start with geography and location. It says explicitly in the ballad that all of the events of the Mulan ballad took place in the vicinity of Yellow River and Yanshan Mountains. Uh, Particularly that Mulan's family lived somewhere near the Yellow River, but the Roran invaded from the Yanshan Mountains direction. Now, if we look at the modern map, we will see that both Yanshan Mountains and Yellow River are still there, and they're in the area of Beijing, and that geography kind of matches what's described in the ballad. In other words, there is a valley and plains near the river, and then there are mountains from where the Roran presumably invaded. And the location matches perfectly the map of Northern Wei as we know it from modern history textbooks. It is also located around the Yellow River, and the Yanshan Mountains are also included in this area. So that's a hit, that's a match. And if we look at the geography, for example, the Yanshan Mountains is a major mountain range to the north of the North China Plain. And we can see how it looks like the landscape. It's very deserty. It doesn't look like what Disney portrays. This is the area where Mulan presumably and her family presumably lived. It's very different from what Disney shows us. Now another one kind of indirect hint that we can take from the Ballad of Mulan comes from the fact that her father sent her to war. Now you would think, what kind of father would send his own child to war? Never mind that she was his daughter. But from the history point of view, we know that the Tuoba tribe, or the Tabgachi tribe, had a privileged military status in the Northern Wei state. In other words, the Han only allowed the Tuoba Tabgachi people to serve in his army. There was a local population that the Tuoba Tabgachi conquered. They were not allowed in the Han's army. It was a high privileged reserved after the original tribes or their descent, and it was held very highly by the people, by the carriers of this culture, and therefore this explains why it would be unthinkable for the Mulan's father to miss this opportunity to serve his Han, and that's why he dared to send his daughter, because losing honor was not an option, and since he didn't have a grown-up son, he had to send her and force her to pretend that she's a boy, that she's a teenager. She was 16 when she joined the army, and that explains why. That makes perfect sense because of the status thing. And also I show this military training of Mulan because that also is a very old nomadic tradition. Nomads, because they were living in the plains, no walls, no protection. Every member of a family had to be a warrior, including girls, boys, women, children, everybody. So that's why they say the nomadic children had to ride a horse from the age of 2, and from the age of three they had to be able to shoot a bow. And I try to reflect that in my illustrations, in my reconstructions, that Mulan must have received a very good military training by her father. And that explains how this 16-year-old girl who was just looming, sitting at the loom, making her uh, making her craft, and crying about being sent to war, and how she managed to join the army, how she managed to stay here and fight for 12 years. Now, mind you, there wasn't a training like it was portrayed in the film, in the Disney's film. There was not an army training. When Han summons the warriors, they had to arrive fully trained and fully equipped. There was no government issued training or government issued equipment, war equipment, in the nomadic states, in the Toba state as well. Most likely, they had to arrive fully equipped, fully trained, and then they were just assigned to units, and they had to get into action immediately. So this also matches the ballad and my reconstruction of these events, because, like I said, the 16-year-old girl who was just sitting at her loom now gets shipped to the war, and she immediately joins the rank. And then there is a description how Mulan was swiftly going through the mountains, and that she stayed in the night watch, and etc. So she was put right into action, and as I assumed, she was probably a light cavalry first, maybe horseback archers or something, or scouts or something, or reconnaissance unit. But by the end of the war, she became a veteran, and because she survived, the war lasted for 12 years, and 12 years in those times, that's not 12 years in our time. It's still a lot of time in our time, but back then, when people lived for 30, 40, 50 years, only 12 years was a lot of time. But she survived, and that means she became a veteran, and she was probably promoted. She probably became an officer. And there is a confirmation of that in the ballad, because when Mulan arrives upon the victory in the end, when she arrives to the Khan's office, to the Khan's palace, presumably, she is an accomplished warrior, and I depicted her as such, wearing full body armor as an officer. And then it says in the ballad that Han was so pleased with her service that he offered her a permanent position in his office as an officer, to which Mulan refused. But this very fact that Han considered her as an officer in his office, as a permanent officer, this is a very high honor that would only be given to a member of military family of a Toba or Tabgachi tribe. So that's yet another hint, another evidence from the original ballad that this was all part of this nomadic or semi-nomadic military uh, nation state, if you will. And there are many more like that I noticed, that I picked. I'm sure there is even more if we dig deeper, but these are just a few examples that kind of confirm very neatly the historicity of the original Ballad of Mulan. And I think we have just one more video left. So stay with me, please. And thank you. And I will see you soon.